That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, we already talked about the teams that I think we need to be focusing in on and watching in our week 1 matchups for our fantasy basketball leagues. But now I think we need to be zooming in on the players in particular that are going to be intriguing based on changing teams, based on changing coaches, really whatever the situation is. I think that these are the players that we should be watching closely as week 1 goes on for NBA fantasy. And I want to say real quick, guys, if you are coming over from fantasy football, a major piece of advice that I'll have for you is please do not overreact to NBA games. Please do not see a player going out there and say shooting 2 for 8 from 3 and think that is predictive of his future success. Really, basketball is so random game to game. What we are looking for is we are looking for the usage rate in their offenses. We are looking at the pace of offense as well as how the units go out together, whether we're going to be seeing a team decide to put up a good amount of threes, whether or not they are going to be force feeding their offense through a particular player. So those are going to be the things that we are watching. Please do not overreact to week 1. But talking about overreacting, someone who played last night that was on our list of players to watch for that balled out, Kevin Durant. Okay, Kevin Durant obviously is looking like a fantastic value with where he went in fantasy drafts right now, just because nobody ever had questions centered around his talent. I think we can all agree that he is one of the best players in NBA history. I mean, a 7-foot shooting guard that is highly athletic. Nobody's going to argue against that. But what we were wondering is, how athletic was he going to be? I mean, was he going to be able to go out there and look like Kevin Durant as of old, or was that major injury that he suffered about 2 seasons ago going to hold him back? But no, it looks like Kevin Durant is good to go this year. Kevin Durant completely torched the Golden State Warriors. It's really fun to watch. I love Kevin Durant. Not so much Kyrie Irving. But anyway, regardless, Kevin Durant being back and 100% is good for basketball. Okay, so now our next player that I think we need to be watching as his game premieres tonight, I'll actually be at this game in Tampa Bay, Florida, is going to be Zion Williamson. Okay, so Zion is going to be going up against the New Orleans Pelicans. And why I think that we need to be zooming in on Zion is seeing where he runs on the court as well as the pace of play for this New Orleans Pelicans offense. Obviously, they had a major coaching change, and this is still a very young team, so we don't necessarily know what to expect in terms of how these players are going to be deployed. What personnel packages are they going to be using? Are they going to be going a little bit deeper on the bench and not necessarily smalling that rotation up? Regardless, it's going to be something to watch, and Zion looks like a force already based on what we saw in the preseason. I don't think anybody is going to make the argument that Zion Williamson is not going to be a fantastic NBA player. But the question is, I mean, how many categories is he going to be able to go out there and fill? We don't necessarily know what the three-point percentage is going to look like. We also don't necessarily know what the assist will be for Zion Williamson. Obviously, based on the position that he plays, it's not that big of a deal that really all we are going to be getting is points from Zion as well as some decent efficiency from the field. But really, what I want to see is I want to see him be able to come down with some rebounds. I did not like drafting him in fantasy drafts this past season. I thought he was going a little bit higher than he should have based on his name appeal and the talent that he is and just how exciting he is. Really, it's going to be something that I want to watch because I'm afraid that the pace of play for this Pelicans team is going to slow down, but hopefully it does not. Okay, so now our next player that we're going to need to watch is going to be John Wall. Okay, obviously John Wall was going in the mid-rounds in fantasy basketball drafts this season. Another player that honestly I did not really like drafting there because if James Harden stays on this Houston Rockets team, I mean, I don't necessarily know what the usage rate is going to be for John Wall, but what we have to be watching with John Wall is how explosive does he look? I mean, does he look like he still has that same athletic profile that he did in his prime? Because obviously John Wall was a point guard that really won off of his athleticism We don't necessarily expect him to be a Steph Curry type shooter. We don't necessarily expect him to be able to stuff the stat sheet at every single category. What we need to see is we need to see John Wall have that bounce. We need to see John Wall be able to play a considerable amount of minutes in this Houston Rockets offense. I think that they're probably going to limit his minutes, which is why that I was avoiding him in fantasy drafts this season, but still something that we are going to want to watch. Okay, so now our next player that we're going to want to watch is probably the most exciting player coming into the NBA this season, Lamelo Ball. I mean, Lamelo Ball looked so good in the preseason for the Hornets. I really was not drafting Lamelo Ball like these other star young players just because I thought based on his name appeal, he was going a little bit too high in fantasy drafts. The question here is how many minutes is he going to be getting? How many minutes is he going to be having with the ball in his hands? I think when he is on the court, they're going to be driving their offense through him. He's going to be facilitating. Obviously, he had some highlight plays in the preseason. I think that is not going to go away. I think the turnovers will be there. But honestly, I am not in the business of looking to avoid the turnovers in fantasy basketball. I think a lot of people overvalue that. And here with LaMelo Ball, I think that he is going to be able to provide us the assist. And also what we really need to see, we're not going to see this week 1, but we're going to see this after we have a large sample, is how is the three-point shot? Is he going to be like Lonzo, where yes, the efficiency's down, but he's putting up so many that it doesn't really matter and he's going to be able to come through with threes regardless? Or is the efficiency going to be down? He decides to stop shooting the three. Or are we just going to see him actually be able to efficiently sink three-pointers despite his shooting form? A bunch of interesting things that we are going to see. That last thing, though, with the three-point shot, I don't think we can say after week 1. Okay, so now our next player that we're going to need to be watching closely is going to be Russell Westbrook. Okay, so Westbrook was going at the very beginning of fantasy basketball drafts this past season. And obviously, I think this is a fantastic offense for Westbrook to land on because the usage rate is going to be through the roof. Obviously, the Washington Wizards have a very bad defense, which is going to be causing them to go out there and push the pace of play. This was one of the fastest playing teams in terms of their possessions per game this past season. I don't think anything changes here with Russell Westbrook. I think, honestly, it was a fantastic landing spot, not necessarily for their real-life NBA success. I don't think that Westbrook is nearly the player that most people expect him to be in terms of helping an NBA franchise, but I think that he's clearly a guy that's going to be putting up fantasy statistics, especially on a team that has a very bad defense and is going to have a ton of possessions per game. Okay, so now our next player that we need to be watching is going to be Gordon Hayward. Yes, Gordon Hayward is suffering a broken finger at the moment. He was going in the middle rounds for fantasy basketball drafts this season. And here, I just want to see what the minutes are going to be for him in Charlotte. I think that they could actually end up being a lot higher than most people want to expect, just based on the fact that they gave him that massive contract. We know Gordon Hayward is going to be able to get shots up. And also, what I really want to see is his chemistry with LaMelo Ball. I want to see if LaMelo Ball is deciding to look his way consistently. We know Hayward is a decent catch and shoot player. I think that the pairing with LaMelo could be a lot better than most people are expecting. So here, I want to see how many minutes he's going to be receiving in this offense, and I want to see the efficiency that we are going to have. Okay, so now our next player is one of my favorite players from fantasy drafts this season. This is going to be Al Horford. Obviously changing teams to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And what I want to see here is I want to see how many minutes is he going to be getting in the starting rotation. I mean, Al Horford, in my opinion, was a fantastic value based on the fact that, yes, he's a very boring name. He's a very boring player. We don't necessarily expect him to be able to elevate the Oklahoma City Thunder. But what we are expecting with Al Horford is for him to be able to go out there and for him to be able to get a ton of minutes to the point where the rebounds are going to be up. We are going to see the points up as well. And Al Horford, we know, can give you some assist at that forward and center position. So really excited about seeing Al Horford in this offense. Now, our last player that we're going to talk about was going at the very end of fantasy basketball drafts this season. And this is going to be Rajon Rondo. And with Rondo here, I really didn't like targeting him in drafts based on the fact that, if you take Rondo, you're pretty much going to have to punt threes. You're really going to be extremely limited on the categories that you are getting in your league. But we know with Rondo, he landed on a very good team, in my opinion, in the Atlanta Hawks. And here with the Hawks, yes, obviously he's going to be playing behind Trae Young. But what we like to see is we like to see players going to a team that is going to be aggressively pushing the ball down the field. We want to see them going out there and jacking up that pace of play and seeing more possessions per game. And with Rondo, I think that if he can become a key member of this offense, and if we see him just be the one-for-one replacement with Trae Young, and they don't decide to give Trae Young another 33 minutes per game, I think he could be intriguing as a plug-and-play player throughout the season. All right, now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop that like, leave that comment, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Have a great day, guys.